Hey, what's up, Reefers? In this video, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I want to dive into specific corals in this tank. I really want to focus on the Gonipora and the Gold Torch, as well as the Space Invader Pectinia. I realized that in my older videos, I usually just give a really broad stroke on the entire tank as a whole and doesn't really go in depth in some of these corals. And I want to try something a little bit different. Hopefully you guys like it. Let's zoom in on the Gonipora. As you can see, I have a few different types of Gonipora. I believe this is the OLA red Gonis. That is a pink Gonis. I'm not sure what type this is, but both of these seems to be the same ones. It has a nice green polyps with like almost like a purple or tan stalk. What you may not know is that on the back wall, I also have some Gonis. We have more of the red Gonis. This one, although have a yellow center, is slightly different. We also have like a Leon yellow polyps with pink stock. So those are all the different Gonis I have. Besides Gonipora, in the past I've also had Inappropriate, but at the time I was also avoiding green corals, so I gave that away. As a result, this is what I got left. One thing I wish I knew when I was starting out with keeping Gonipora is how important certain trace element is. Manganese, if I can cut straight to the chase. For the first year or so, if you look back at my older video, I have two. I think it's like this one and another Gonipora, green one that I gave away. They were not doing well for the first year. Basically, it was retracted the entire time. It was bleached out. They're just sitting there. I tried moving it to a different spot. Did not help. It was pale pink, almost like a straight white, and it was like that for many months, and I was surprised by how long it actually hung on. And that's really one thing I want to give credit to Gonipora as well. They are actually really hardy corals when the condition is not right. Even though they're retracted or the polyps just stick out a little bit, they just hang on there, and when the condition is right, they sprout right up. I've seen these multiple times. The first time before I started dosing trace elements, like I mentioned, for a couple months, almost half a year, it was just like a piece like this, and all the polyps always retracted, it's bleached out, it's unhappy. When I started dosing trace elements, specifically I believe it's the manganese that helps, within 2 weeks, polyps started extending, color started coming back, everything was good. I did not move it at all. So it is not the water movement, it is not the lights, it is whatever was adding to the tank, and at that time the only thing that changed was trace elements. So I know there's rumbling about manganese helping Gonipora. I am a believer of that. The other interesting observation I have with these red Gonipora is that they grow to a humongous size. I've seen a lot of these this specific red Gonis in older reef tanks, and in the past I've mentioned that this is almost like a sign. This is a badge of honor. Some of these like OG reef tank, they always have like a large red Gonipora, so boy, I would try my best not to frag this guy. I want to grow it out, because to me, a nice huge red Goni as well as a nice huge Derisic clam is kind of like a cosine of a nice mature OG reef tank. And that's what I got to say about Gonipora. Manganese, and every single reef tank needs a red Goni. Love these guys. If you guys like Gonipora, I'm sure you also like the torch coral, specifically the Gold Torch. They are like noodles, right? Just like And to be honest, I think I was caught up in the hype. A couple years ago, a head of the Gold Torch would fetch upwards to like $100. And when something's valued that much, you just think there's something special to it. Don't get me wrong, there is. But is it worth $100 a polyp? I don't think so. However, one of the dragon or whale that I'm chasing is the coloration. On Instagram, I see some insane solid gold coloration. I mean, this one down here is kind of approaching it, but I've been chasing the coloration in my tank. I know it could be done, because at some local fish stores and other reefers tank, I've seen that coloration. So I suspect it has something to do with the water chemistry or the lights, or maybe just how the light renders specific corals. However, in my tank, I have moonlight periods that's like almost like a solid blue, but I still don't get that solid gold coloration. Even though in terms of the Gold Torch morph, they should have that coloration. I have the Sun God. I bought that off of a auction benefiting Jake Adam when he first passed, rest his soul. I have the standard Indo Gold. I have the New York Knicks. I have the, I forgot what it's called. It's supposed to be one of the Holy Grail. Holy Grail, I believe that's one of the Holy Grails. So I do have some of the torches with the pedigrees. However, I'm just not getting the coloration. Well, I do know that if I look at it from a top down, I get much better coloration. But at the same time, I have seen tanks where I just look from the front, the torches look just gold, but I'm just not getting that coloration, and that's just something that I'm sort of chasing in the back of my mind. I'm not really stressed over it as much anymore. I would say maybe like 2 years ago, I was like, man, this is supposed to be solid gold, but it's not. Either way, I'm not chasing the color anymore. As long as they're happy, as long as they're kind of goldish, they look kind of cool with the movement, I'm happy. One thing that I noticed is that the torch was growing really, really well for me. It was over here before, and I realized why it's growing so well for me is because before the move, the feeding port was right here, and those like whatever food that I was feeding that day, like banded pads, revoids, frozen food, just like right from the feeding port. So the torch is getting all of those things, and I do believe those help as well. But even in the back, they are still a pretty fast grower for me. They split pretty often. One thing that I wish I knew when I first started keeping these LPS is that don't be shy about cutting off a head when it started declining really fast. Meaning that if you see a head kind of turning into mush because of brown jelly disease, dude, just cut it off. Just cut your loss. Don't try to save it. You could try to save it, but if I knew what I know now, as soon as I see it looking kind of off and just kind of shrinking and turning to mush, I'll just cut it or cut my loss. The second thing that I wish I knew is to really inspect and ideally dip all the euphyllias or hammer or the frog spawn that you get, whether it's from fish store or other reefers, because things can easily hitchhike into your tank. I've only ran into euphyllia eating flatworm once, and they were beatable. It takes a little patience and time, simply because the dip is not effective for euphyllia flatworm's eggs. Once they lay eggs, which are orange and they cluster near the border of the tissue, you have to scrape them off. That's the only way, at least that I know of. The flatworm itself comes off really easily with potassium chloride. I believe that's what it is. It's a really, really affordable, really cheap. For like $10, you get a big bag that'll last you for years. So they come off really easily, but it's the eggs that will kind of be the gift that keeps on giving. So I will definitely recommend a nice inspection and to dip all the LPS that you get from other sources. However, Gold Torch is not my first love, but they do look nice, and they do well in my system, and they are cool. They are cool. Not sure if they justify the price tag, which the market seems to be realizing right now. The price is crashing down. But they are a cool coral, and that's the second coral that I want to talk about today. Now, if you were to ask me what's my favorite coral of all time, number one would be frog spawn. Number two would be this guy. This is the Space Invader Pectinia. If you are a longtime follower of this channel, you know I've almost always had a Space Invader Pectinia in my system. These guys are like my canary in the coal mine for elk swings. In my 45-gallon cube tank years ago, whenever the elk swings, it just started receding and you start seeing skeleton protruding at the tip. But they also recover really, really fast. Like if the condition is right, the tissue started growing over the skeleton within 2 or 3 weeks. And I have sent struggling Space Invader Pectinia to my Reef Sensei Jim's tank multiple times already, and multiple frags came back. In fact, these two guys right here came from Jim, and these were the actual original colony of the Space Invader Pectinia from my tank a long time ago. That was from one of the frag that Jim gave me pretty early on, so it had a chance to really grow out. These guys were when Jim was having issue with his last tank. He gave the original colony back. I was struggling my tank a little bit, so I fragged it up. And there's 2 of the frag. This was supposed to be like tiny beak. This guy actually grew a lot. Which leads me to another reason why I love the Space Invader Pectinia. Look at the growth formation. It looks so different based on the water flow, the lights. This is more layered, like a cluster together like this. I wish I can show you a little bit from that side. Versus this one, it's like flat, almost like a chalice with the edges popping up. So it's kind of hard to say which one looks nicer because I still want to see how this grows out. But this is interesting, right? One thing that stood out in my mind is that worldwide coral down in Orlando, Florida, in their Casper tank. I'm not sure if it's still in there, but they had a Space Invader Pectinia that was like a tower. It was like this tall, and the growth formation was like this. So it's almost like Christmas tree. It's just so unique. It looks so awesome. that the growth formation is number one. The second thing that I really love about the Space Invader Pectinia is the coloration. You know exactly what you're gonna get when you get a Space Invader Pectinia, because color is almost always like this if you provide enough flow, enough lights. There's not much variation. Space Invader Pectinia is gonna be a nice fluorescent green with yellow eyes, bright yellow eyes. Just look at here. So this color doesn't really change unless your lighting is really low, then it's kind of dull out a little bit. But for the most part, it's like this. Unlike the SPS, maybe if the lighting or the condition is not good, they turn green or even brown if the nutrients too high. So there's no issue like that with the Space Invader Pectinia, and they're just so consistent. Now, the downside is that, and something that I also wish I knew, is how long the sweeper tentacle is. Thankfully, in this location, they have not really aggressively sent out sweepers, but in my old tank, in the 45-gallon tank where it got really happy and the spacing is really tight, it sent out some super long stingers and they are potent. Vic from Worldwide Coral gave the tip that you could actually cut off those stingers if they get a little bit too long. Or another way to do it is like work with the water flow. You see the flow is kind of pushing this way. So any stinger that gets sent out may just kind of hit the wall, which protects the other corals. But I kind of wish I knew how long and how aggressive those stingers were when I first started out, when I first started keeping the Space Invader Pectinia. And also, I also wish that I am a little bit better about fragging and trading or selling corals, because these are so easy to frag. Look at this, just like a little scissor. That's one piece right there, and you want to put some super glue, ideally on the cut end, so that you seal up the open wound. But I've had them laid down like this and they grow just fine. They're so hardy. But they're really easy to frag, really hardy, absolutely beautiful. I believe they're really beginner friendly as well. They're not too demanding. They can do high light, low lights, high flow, low flow. The growth formation will just be a little different, but they tend to retain the color. In fact, if you look over here, I have a naturally frag piece of Space Invader Pectinia that has been sitting on the sandbed for the last, how long? It's been there for 2 to 3 months already, just kind of chilling there. And at any point now I thought, uh-oh, it's gonna die, but no, it's growing fine. In fact, I think it grew a little bit as well. So coming in at my second favorite coral would be the Space Invader Pectinia. Man, I am on a roll. There are a lot more I want to talk about. In fact, I really want to talk about the Gonipora cap. We have two of my favorite morphs in my tank here. We have Chalice, we have the Weeping Willow that I really need to give an update on. That's what this is as well. Some different types of Weeping Willow in the back. We've got a soft coral. There's just lots of things to talk about. I'm not gonna keep the video too long because these days I think shorter video, it's a little bit better, easier to digest. Everybody's busy. I just want to get this out to you guys instead of waiting like another month or two before I push out a longer video. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, and out of curiosity, out of the 3 corals I talked about, which one is your favorite? And also, what coral would you like to see me added to this tank? I'm always open to ideas. All right, see you guys next video.